Welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics Daily. It's Monday, and that means we are with John Brummett of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Mm-hmm. Of course, you were on Sunday, too.
I like your new Sunday show. May I tout it?
Yes.
I mean, it's lively. It's more fast-paced. It gets more subjects. Plus, you use my Monday stuff sometimes on Sunday, which gets me on the television, and I like that.
It keeps you extra relevant because you're already relevant. It keeps you extra relevant.
I got text, emails yesterday wanting to follow up about my comments on the Bar Association because people had seen them for the first time.
We're making you omnipresent with
I'm working
Talk
on
Business and Politics.
And while you were on, I was on radio with Bill Fickery arguing for 2 hours on whatever that station is. What is it?
It's The Buzz.
The Buzz,
yeah.
And that generated some buzz because we kind of got at it.
Y'all get scrappy. We
did.
It's good.
He was. It was kind of a setup deal. He was loaded, but I handled it. It was all right.
Let's talk about Trump and foreign policy. He is in the midst of a trip to the Middle East. Gives really his first big speech on a foreign stage in Saudi Arabia on Sunday. Some people say it has reset Middle Eastern relations there. They said it's the best speech in the last 10 years, I have heard from some of them. Some others have said Trump discovered political correctness on this trip. What's your take?
All of that's true. He did discover political correctness. He gave a very measured, cautious speech about broad principles, and he abandoned that combative rhetoric toward the Muslim religion, which we've heard domestically here in his political and campaign context. But that's a pattern with Trump. It's kind of like it's symptomatic of a bully or kind of a wuss. I mean, he will notice he likes to talk harshly about you if you're not around, such as Barack Obama. But do you remember the 2 days after the election when he went down and actually talked with Obama and came out and said, "Oh, what a great man. What a great man. What a wonderful man. I'm really honored to meet him, and he's a really good man." So that's the pattern. But the speech itself was just the right tone. I mean, he said, "This is not a war between our religion and your religion, or my religion and your religion. This is between good and evil, and we're good, and the terrorists and the Iranians are evil." And that's as good a way to frame it as I have heard.
Yeah.
And it's diplomatically deft, and that's not the kind of thing we normally see from Trump. But this thing has been the stagecraft has been so good. It's a perfect place to go because the Saudis want us to sell them some arms and buy more of their oil and be tough toward Iran. So it was a perfect place for him to go, but he performed. Trump does better when he normalizes. When he's abnormal, which is most of the time, he appeals to his base, and that is all. But when he shows that he can actually behave properly on a script or with the appropriate political deftness needed of the job, as he has done so far on this trip, the American people feel somehow reassured that he's not over there and he's not tweeting. I don't think he's tweeted.
I haven't seen anything.
He hadn't tweeted like, man, it's hot over here. How do these people live over here? I mean, he's not doing that kind of thing. So good. You know, it's a good
So what
trip.
happens when he comes back to the United States and
who
decides
knows?
that he has not been as tough as he should have been, as you indicated there before? He's not going to be in front of that foreign audience
I don't know
again.
that he'll decide that. This trip may be such a success that he will not see a need to retreat from it. If he comes back and he gets some criticism that he's gone soft, that is as bad as Obama, then yeah, he'll find a need to get tough. But I don't think that's going to happen. There is simply no way to predict how he'll behave when he comes home, and he doesn't really need a provocation sometimes. You'll just wake up one morning and there's a tweet that's out of nowhere because he just woke up in that particular mood. So we'll see. But for these purposes, good trip.
Good trip so far.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what has been happening domestically since you and I last sat down a week ago, and that is we got a special counsel appointed. That happened after you and I sat down last time. I'm going to ask you a series of good or bad questions and let you expound on that. Is a special counsel good for Trump?
No.
Tell me why.
No, it's never good to be investigated by a former head of the FBI as a special counsel with full authority of the FBI and the Attorney General. No.
Not good.
No. I mean, I've got a column tomorrow that says he may, I don't think the special counsel will find criminal collusion by Trump himself. Maybe some of these yahoos around him, but not by Trump himself with the Russians. I think he will find that he's just got kind of a man crush on the Russians and has been trying to work some kind of back channel deal. And he thinks they can help us beat, naively think they can be our pal. But he also has already done a sort of a 1, 2, 3 of obstruction of justice. That's on the record. When you say, please call off this, would you call off this investigation?
Right.
Then you fire him. And then after you fire him, assuming the Times and Post stories are true, then you fire him, then you tell the Russians, it's going to be easier for us now. That's attempted obstruction of justice. That's chargeable right now. So Mueller's job may eventually be more, maybe what do I do about that? Because he was just being egomaniacal and silly and naive. So all of that is to say, he may escape any kind of prosecution, any kind of impeachment. This all may blow over by the time he's on the ballot again. It's possible. But no, there's no, it's not good.
Special counsel, good or bad for Congress?
Good. Well, which Congress? The Republicans in Congress or the Democrats in Congress? Because we have two Congresses.
I'll
they
let
don't
you
work
answer it
together.
however you want to.
The Republicans, I think the Republicans are dying to sort of not be under pressure, partisan pressure about this, to investigate it as they see fit by their time and method that they find appropriate, but to get over to some good, the Republicans, to get over to some good tax cut or something. Let's cut somebody's taxes around here, you know, instead of fighting all this business.
Or push forward on health care over in the Senate.
Well, maybe.
I mean, they're going to.
Well, I guess. But in the House, they've already passed some silliness on health care, but they haven't yet cut rich people's taxes, and that's what Republicans do. And this will take enough of the pressure off them that they can proceed with the investigation at their own speed and by their own methods, but get over to some policy, which is what this is all about in the first place, you know.
And it gives them the excuse of being able to say, I can't talk about that because it's under investigation.
Right.
So therefore,
right.
I can.
But they are going to hear after Memorial Day from Comey, and who knows what happens to that? I mean,
I predict the president will be tweeting after that.
How many contemporaneous memos did Comey write, and what do they say? And that's going to be that's the wild card in all of this.
Let's take a quick commercial break. Let's come back and talk about some state politics.
Splendid.
All right, we're back with more John Brummett right after this.
Arkansas Electric Cooperative Corporation provides electric energy across 2/3 of Arkansas. This is an exciting time in our energy history, with incredible progress being made in renewable energy and storage technologies. As our energy portfolio continues to diversify, we'll maintain an all-the-above strategy to provide reliable and affordable electricity. Ever since the first light bulbs were placed in our members' homes, the electric cooperatives have been the solutions provider for our members, and we want to continue that well into the future.
Each day, the promise of our nation begins again. Arkansas and America, moving forward. I help make that promise a reality. It's not for everyone, but people everywhere depend on us.
I love you too, sweetie.
Trucking delivers, or everything stops. And that's what drives me.
Welcome back to Talk Business and Politics Daily. I'm with John Brummett of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, turning our attention to state politics. Let's talk about, I want a summary of what's going on with the Arkansas Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals. This was the meat of your Sunday column in the Democrat-Gazette. Give viewers and listeners a roundup of what the heck's going on over there.
You don't think they read it? I've got to tell.
Well, I think that they did,
but they didn't understand
to a
it?
new audience.
Okay.
An expanded audience. Explain.
The Arkansas Supreme Court is composed of 7 people. About 3 of which, maybe 4, have serious chips on their shoulder, and they have had some bad publicity, and they don't like it, and they're resentful generally, and they want to fight generally. It's just their personality type. But they don't want any bad publicity about it. There also is this idea on the Supreme Court that the Supreme Court does all the important work, but doesn't make that much more money than the Court of Appeals, which divides into these panels instead of meeting as a full court to divide their workload, and that they ought to make a lot more money than the Court of Appeals. So what happened last week was that this Chief Justice, Dan Kemp, who may or may not have been even for what he was advocating, I don't know, but he was sent over. He came over to the Commission on pay raises and asked for 11% raises for the members of the Supreme Court and 2% raises for the members of the Court of Appeals to sort of get establish this hierarchy a little more clearly. Meantime, the next day, the Court of Appeals put out an opinion ruling on a prisoner petition. The prisoners sit down there and write their own petitions of post-conviction relief, of ineffectiveness of counsel. The Supreme Court has always handled them. The Court of Appeals put out a ruling on one, but took the first 2 or 3 pages of the ruling to say, the reason we're having to do this is because we looked up one day and the Supreme Court had put in a little footnote at the bottom of this per curiam order that they were switching them to us. In other words, they didn't want to make a big deal of it. They wanted to put it in a footnote. 2, these things don't come with the legal citations of normal briefings, and they gave us no additional staff for this. 3, they have a 5-person staff for these kinds of cases, and they kept it. And this just infuriated the Supreme Court, and you had the 2 highest courts of the state who exist in the separate floors of this justice building over the west of the Capitol, in some kind of workplace drama befitting some real pedestrian workplace. And they called, the Supreme Court called in Rita Gruber, the Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals, and I suspect it wasn't real pleasant for her, because some of those Supreme Court jurists justices aren't pleasant, and they wanted that to, I think, I didn't put this in the column, but I'll share it here, because why not? I think they wanted her to have the court amend that order to take out those critical references. And then when she didn't, they put out a news release saying the Court of Appeals doesn't know what it's talking about. And I had an official, let's put it this way, a source close to the Arkansas Supreme Court, call it that, saying, Court of Appeals is a part-time job. Actually, I had,
wow.
So,
I bet the Court of Appeals doesn't feel
if any of them are watching now, they just exploded. But this is, basically, the Supreme Court is with this chip on its shoulder and this arrogance, is asking for a ridiculous amount of money for a raise, in my opinion. 2, the Court of Appeals, yes, they should have been notified of this new assignment in a different way, and they probably maybe give them another staff member or something. But they look like they're whining. All of it, my conclusion is, wholly unbecoming of our 2 highest courts, and they ought to straighten up.
Who wins?
Who wins? Well, Supreme Court wins. They're higher. They're higher. But I don't know if they
just makes that automatically makes them the winner in this?
Well, they can. You mean in terms of public perception?
Sure, and the pay raises and the workload and all that.
If you ask in those politically, in terms of the issues, most of the reaction I got to that column had to do with the Supreme Court's ridiculous pay raise request, as opposed to the bottom of the column about this whining about the workload. So to that extent, Supreme Court loses.
Okay.
I mean, there's 11% raise is something most people can't really warm to, particularly when you're raising it from 165 to 180 something. A
little over the average.
And particularly when you get summers
pay.
off, and particularly when you just farmed off part of your work to the Court of Appeals. So now that you make me think about it, Supreme Court loses. Okay?
All right, I can live with that analysis right there. Last question for you. Legislative Tax Task Force begins its work this week. I suspect there'll be a lot of presentations for a while so that they can be brought up to speed on how Arkansas's tax code compares to other states and where we rank and all that kind of stuff right there.
Which will always depend on which study you cite, but go ahead.
One of the biggest things they're going to look at are exemptions to the tax code. And I just had Randy Veach from Arkansas Farm Bureau on the program this past week saying that his group plans to fight a lot of the repeals of those exemptions, which are numerous.
No kidding.
and you got a $20 billion industry in the farm and agriculture sector there. Do they get anything substantial and transformative done in this task force if you're going to have to go up against some of those types of challenges?
I've been at this a long time, since the 80s, and Bill Clinton was always wanting to, quote, broaden the tax base by repealing exemptions, or as he said, to begin applying taxes more broadly to things not now taxed. Always came up, and it was always offered as this is better than raising everybody's sales tax. And it never goes anywhere because most of the exemptions are for businesses like manufacturing, or they're for agriculture, and those are
Big
behemoth,
business.
big time
Yeah.
lobbies, and also sort of the economic lifeblood of the state that a legislator would naturally be worried about harming. So I don't see any, this task force, a little bit of the backstory. You know Charlie Collins. Good jobs magnet, cut income taxes, way back, all rates. He'd like to phase them out entirely. He got a little perturbed that for this last session, his governor, whom he loves, Asa Hutchinson, proposed only tax cuts for the lowest income. And in order to get Charlie, sort of the tax cut guru of the House, to settle down, they gave him this task force to look, which he's not actually on.
And he's not on it,
He's
yeah.
not, but he's going to be there. Created this task force to look at substantial tax reform, or broad, comprehensive tax reform. This is going to be about cutting income taxes and how much can we cut them and keep government afloat. That's what it's going to be. The notion that we can broaden the tax base by repealing the farm, agriculture, and manufacturing exemptions, I think is a non-starter. This whole issue of internet sales taxes is one place where maybe you can make up some. The other is, simultaneous to that, Governor Hutchinson is talking about his transformation of state government to try to make it more efficient. Those two things are going to work. They're going to move along, and they're going to try to make an equation out of it. The amount that Charlie and the legislators decide to cut income taxes, and the amount that the government, and whatever they can add then with internet sales tax or something else, and then bring back government size through this transformation. But none of that is going to happen before the next election. Asa Hutchinson will proceed to the next election as a moderate who is probably going to win overwhelmingly. I'm almost assuredly going to win overwhelmingly. And all of this will be deferred until the 2019 session, when he will have his mandate. The time to look for in Arkansas politics is when those two tracks come together, and we'll see what we get proposed and passed in the 2019 session.
You heard it here first.
Well,
From
no, I
the
think
John Brummett.
Well, second or third, but it's up near the top of times you've heard it.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you for the analysis. Happy Memorial Day to you.
Same
A little
to
bit
you.
later on this
You
week.
have a good weekend. Baseball and cookouts. And
All that good stuff. Apple pie, American
Okay.
flag, all that good stuff.
All right.
All right. That's all for today's Talk Business and Politics Daily. Thanks for tuning in.